When it comes to your body, there is one part that tends to get more attention than any other part, and that is your belly area. Our bellies tend to be a hotbed of fat if we are not careful with certain elements of our lifestyle, if we're not careful with movement, if we're not careful with the foods that we eat. And today I want to teach you a few of my tips that I teach my clients to get them to lose belly fat in a fast and effective way that is sustainable and long-term. Hi, my name is Tracy D. Mitchell. I'm a Mayo Clinic health and wellness coach. I'm also the author of a book called The Belly Burn Plan. And today I'm going to teach you 3 of my tried and true tips that I teach my clients that help them effectively lose belly fat at any age. Now, before I get going, one thing that I always do with my clients is level expectations. I would never approach a relationship with a client telling them that they'll be able to lose 20, 30 pounds in a month of belly fat just like that. It's not possible to lose that much weight and sustain it without it affecting other parts of your life. So the tips I'm going to give you are going to be beneficial to your life. They're going to make you happier. And more importantly, they're going to make you healthier. So before I get going, take a moment to click the subscribe button below to stay in the know on all things that are good and healthy for your body. Every week, I release a new video that teaches you tips, tricks, and pieces of advice to help your body stay healthy, whether by eating the right foods, moving more, or living healthier. All right, so let's jump into these 3 tips and tricks. Now, real quick, I want to make a distinction between the types of fat that you do have in your belly area. Of these 2 types, there is a surface type of fat called subcutaneous fat, and that's just below the surface of your skin. The distinction between this and the other type of fat is that subcutaneous fat is pinchable. It's the pinchable type of fat, the same type that you have on the backs of your arms, your hips, your thighs. It's not the same type of fat that you have packed deeply inside of your body. That's the type we're going to focus on, and that's called visceral fat. Visceral fat is the type of fat that packs itself deeply inside of your midsection, tightly close to your vital organs, and that's part of the reason why it's so detrimental to your health. It packs itself so close around your heart, your spleen, your liver. The good news about visceral fat, though, is that it wants to come off your body. Your body wants to be healthy. So these 3 tips are going to help you lose that belly fat in a faster and effective way than a fad diet ever could. And it's going to help you keep it off. So should we jump into those tips? Let's go for it. Now, as you hear these tips, you're certainly going to hear a few things that you just don't want to hear. Maybe some changes that you don't want to make, or maybe you'll start negotiating with yourself that, is there another way that I can do this? Is there an easier way? Is there a way that I can circumvent this? If you find that you rub up against this friction, you're probably at the point that you know that you need to make that change, because that change is going to be important and critical to your health. So tip number 1 is going to be related not to food, but to another lifestyle habit called sleep. And let me explain this to you. When we don't get good quality sleep, we don't get the benefit of 2 hormones that work themselves out when we sleep at night, or shine the brightest when we sleep at night. Now, the first hormone that really gives us the biggest bang for the buck when we sleep is something called human growth hormone, and that's released at the front end of every one of our sleep cycles. And if you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night, that's something that you really need to start focusing in on. And I have a lot of space for this. I know that maybe you are a caregiver, maybe you're a mom with young children at home, maybe you work 3rd shift, maybe you have a sleep disorder like sleep apnea. I understand this, but where you can, focus on getting good quality sleep, and I will explain how you can do that in just a moment. When you miss the benefit of human growth hormone, which is almost exclusively released when you sleep at night, you miss the benefit of fat metabolism. Human growth hormone is largely responsible for fat metabolism, muscle development, and repairing your body from all the damage that happened the day before. So when you miss out on sleep, you're robbing yourself of this valuable human growth hormone. The other hormone that you miss out on the benefit of is the balance of insulin. When we sleep at night, our body really does a great job, like I said, of repairing itself, but also balancing out other hormones, including insulin. And insulin, anytime you hear insulin being thrown off the rails, you know that it's going to be storing fat. But when you can balance insulin, take advantage of it. And one way that you can help to balance insulin, bring it back to its center, is by getting good quality sleep. So how can you get good quality sleep? Here are a couple of really powerful tips that will help you do that. One is by turning off your screens 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed. The reason for this is when you have screens close to your face, you're blocking another very important hormone called melatonin. And screens would include your phone, your tablets, your laptops. So try to shut those devices down 60 to 90 minutes before you go to sleep, because the blue wave light that's released from those devices blocks that all-important melatonin getting released from your brain. And when you don't get the benefit of melatonin, your body doesn't perceive that it's nighttime, that it's time to shut down, and that it's time to go to sleep. It makes falling asleep harder, and it makes staying asleep more challenging. So do yourself a favor, shut down your devices an hour, hour and a half before you go to sleep. The other tip that I have for getting good quality sleep is to close the kitchen down 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. That means try not to eat shortly before bedtime. And the reason for this is because anytime you eat anything, your blood sugar levels come up. And when your blood sugar levels come up, so does insulin. So when insulin is on the rise, this is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a natural thing for insulin to come up anytime we eat anything. But when insulin comes up when we're going to bed, it blocks human growth hormone. Remember, human growth hormone is what gets released when we sleep. If you're not giving your body a break from eating, you're not going to get the benefit of that human growth hormone because insulin gets in the way of it. So those are 2 ways that you can get better sleep. The second tip that I have for you to lose unhealthy visceral fat, that unhealthy belly fat, is to cut out or cut back on caffeinated beverages. Now, this may be a tall order to ask, but it is probably one of the most critical that you can make. I'm not saying that you have to cut it out entirely, but if you're someone who finds themselves drinking coffee, black tea, diet sodas later on in the day, try to curb your caffeine consumption to no later than 9 a.m. So why would caffeine get in the way of you losing belly fat? Let me explain that to you. When you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels should be at their highest. This is your stress hormone, and it's natural for cortisol to rise, but it rises in the morning time and it diminishes throughout the day. When you go to sleep, cortisol, in theory, should be at its lowest point. That allows for melatonin to do its job, you fall asleep, and the day works like that. But when you drink anything with caffeine in it, you artificially inflate your cortisol levels. So it's not such a big deal if you're drinking caffeine by 9 a.m. in the morning, but if you start drinking caffeine at 11 o'clock, noon, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, you're going to be artificially inflating your cortisol levels. When you artificially inflate your cortisol, cortisol goes over to your liver, knocks on your liver's door, and asks for sugar to be released because that's what cortisol does. Cortisol, your stress hormone, wants to get you out of a sticky situation. It perceives danger or a threat. And when you artificially inflate cortisol like that, that's what your body thinks is happening. So sugar is the best option for you to be able to flee a stressful situation. So now you have sugar in your blood that's been released from your liver, and what happens? Your blood sugar level rises. Then what happens? Insulin chases after it. So now you've got insulin chasing after the sugar in your blood, and anytime insulin's called into action like that, you're storing belly fat, even in the absence of not eating anything with calories. So my advice is to curb or cut out caffeine. If you're going to drink it, stop drinking by 9 a.m. And the third and final tip, and this is probably the most powerful, and it's probably one of the most difficult for people to really get their head around, it's the most difficult for people to actually take action on, and that is to cut back or cut out refined carbohydrates. Now, refined carbohydrates are things like white pasta, white rice. They're things like breads. They're things like pastries, candies. Refined carbohydrates, unlike unprocessed carbohydrates, elevate your blood sugar levels much, much faster. When your blood sugar levels come up, you know what happens now. Insulin gets called into action, and anytime insulin gets called into action, your body will store fat. Now, this is something that's really important for us to understand because many refined carbohydrates, let's say it's a white piece of bread or a jelly bean, they have a negligible amount of fat in them. So in the absence of seeing fat on the label, it's sometimes hard for people to understand that a food that has carbohydrate in it will store fat, but that's how it happens. It has to do with the reaction of the food that you're eating and the way it influences your blood sugar levels. Now you're probably wondering, well, then what the heck should I eat? I have no idea. I've been eating low-fat yogurt and bagels for breakfast. I've been having sugary coffee drinks throughout the day. I've been having pasta and sandwiches for lunch. All of this sounds like it's a refined carbohydrate, and it is. So the solution here is to really focus on unprocessed carbohydrates that are going to have plenty of fiber in them, eating healthy protein and a good amount of fat as well. All of these are very important to maintain the health of your body. And eating the right foods can absolutely help you lose that unhealthy belly fat. Now you're probably wondering, well, can you give me an example of this? And I can tell you right now, I've got the perfect solution for you. It is my 6-week apple-shaped meal plan, and it is available for you to download right now. It is filled with all of the foods that will effectively help you lose that belly fat right now. You can download the meal plan. I have a link below in the description. So take a moment to click on the link, download the meal plan today. This meal plan is filled with 6 weeks of meal plans, 6 weeks of recipes, all the advice that you need from me, and I will stay in touch with you via email every step of the way. So if you really want an effective way to lose unhealthy belly fat in a way that is sustainable and long-term, my 6-week apple-shaped meal plan is for you. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those below. And don't forget to click the subscribe button to stay in the know on all things that are good and healthy for your body.